Hello and welcome to another edition of the Paranormal Concept Show. I'm your host Paul Rook, and as always we are joined, especially tonight, by Kerry Greenaway. Hello Kerry.
Hello, did you miss me?
Oh, we did. Yeah, Richard
Oh,
Clements is here as well, just,
yeah, I was just about to say, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm,
I was
I'm
going to
that
introduce you after.
bit.
Yeah, I was going to introduce you after, but yeah,
Oh, right.
Kerry got to talking.
I only asked if you missed me, and then it all went into a bit of a chest beat.
Well, we always miss you, Kerry, when
You
you're not
always
around.
yes.
But we did say that we let you have a pamper session last week.
Yeah, I had a lovely pamper session, thanks. Didn't know quite
Yeah,
what to do with myself last week.
I bet. So what did you have done then?
Nails, fingernails, toenails, eyebrows, top lip,
Oh, I
all
see,
the
I see.
usuals.
The usuals. Oh, bless you.
I did it myself, I'd like to point out, because we are still in lockdown. I didn't have like a beauty queen come round to do it for me. I did have to do it myself. But yeah, my poor old eyebrow technician is going to have a field day when she gets back on my brow. She's going to be like, who did these? Be like, I don't know. Me, maybe, nobody else has been around.
Oh,
Oh
dear.
dear, but it's all been fine. So, no, so it was lovely. It was lovely to have a week off, actually.
Yeah,
I bet. So
yeah.
it's my turn this week, so right, I'll let you crack on.
I don't think so. Not this week.
Oh, no. You're here now, Paul. You're not going anywhere.
Oh look, I've got does that
Yeah,
go
that don't
well with
work,
it?
boy. That don't work.
That doesn't work either, mate.
Yeah.
So I'm
Okay.
bringing you
So
back
what's the
down to
subject tonight?
earth.
What we're gonna
Well, I'm bringing you
delve
back.
into tonight?
I'm bringing you back down to earth, Paul, because you went off into interdimensional beings last week.
Oh, yeah, great fun we had.
I know it was a lovely Chris. When the boys are away, when the mouse is away, the cat will play. Or what is it? The cat will play when the mouse. I don't know. Anyway, that's saying they went
When the
in.
cat's away.
Yeah, right. They had a right old fun with that one. So we're bringing you back down to earth this week, and we're going to have a look at something I've actually considered quite a main integral part of the paranormal for quite a while now, actually. And that's basically, we keep talking about the human factor, don't we?
We do.
Yes.
Do we create our own reality? Can we affect what happens or what we manifest around us by the power of thought?
That's an
Of course we
interesting one.
can.
So there
There
is.
you go. So there, that's sorted.
Oh, okay, that's it. Thanks very much, everybody. Join us next
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
So this actually hits in several different ways because we've talked about thought forms before. We've talked about other areas of this way. We've talked about manifesting. What you desire with the power of thought. All of those kind of things we've talked about. We're going to have a look a little bit more in depth about this one and have a bit of a discussion on this. So there is a famous philosophical saying, I think, therefore I am.
Right.
Yeah.
I've
I've
heard that.
that.
Yep.
And they say that because we have thought, that's the only reason we have form.
Right.
Because we think it, we've got it. So effectively, we are manifesting our reality.
So what they're saying is our sort of thoughts and our reality are sort of one and the same.
Yeah, and because everyone thinks the same, effectively, we think we've got a body, we think we're on planet Earth, we think that, there's trees and fauna and flora and houses and wages and stuff, that that because we think it manifests. That's what we see, because that's what we think. Yeah.
Right.
I don't think that, actually. I think matter it's hardcore matter, isn't it?
Right. Well, you'd think so. I mean, that sort of is a very abstract sort of look at it, but I can see why some people possibly sort of think like that. It is quite a sort of a woo-woo way of thinking, I suppose, sort of quite a spiritually way of thinking.
Which is why, if you think in a different way, you manifest different things because you're making your own reality.
Well, yes, I can certainly sort of. I've often sort of felt that if you know, the simple sort of thing about change your attitude towards something, which your attitude is sort of is generated by your thoughts, you know, yeah, and you can to some extent control the environment around you. Well, particularly your interactions with people and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm a firm believer in that.
Paul?
Um, yeah, I see. I don't know too much about the whole thought process to be able to say one way or the other whether or not you could manifest anything.
All right, let's put this in a different way of saying this for you. Because, right, so say you've got somebody ill in front of you,
Yeah,
and how they deal with that illness, whether they deal with it in a positive way or they're a negative Annie about it, affects how they heal, the healing process, correct? You
right.
must have
Yeah,
witnessed
okay.
that.
So yeah, it's yeah, I have. Yeah,
So it's about
it's a
your
power of
attitude,
thought,
isn't
isn't it?
it? It's your attitude and your power of thought, isn't it?
Yeah, okay. I can understand that. Yeah, if you're positive, you're gonna, you almost pull through, don't you? And then, yeah, if you're negative, it just takes a downward spiral. So, yeah,
Seems to have more. You seem to have more problems if you're negative.
yeah,
It's a very simplified. I mean, this is very simplified. It's very complicated because if you're in pain, it's very hard to be positive, isn't it? Let's be fair.
Well,
oh,
You know,
definitely,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
it sounds easy. Oh, just think positive. You'll be fine. You know, you've got a broken leg, the bone's protruding from your leg, you know, your skin. But hey, think positive. That'll heal it. That's not how it works. I'm not going to lie about that. That's not how it works. But the healing
But the
process is part of that healing process, if that makes sense.
yeah.
The mindset is part of it, and they like particularly with cancer, they say half the battle is actually a mental battle.
Yes, I should imagine it is not actually having sort of been through that, but you know, sort of, we all know people who have, and yeah, certainly I would agree with that. It must take a huge strain on the person.
But it's eroding, isn't it? When you go
Mm.
through that process, the treatment is horrendous. Physically, you're drained. You're feeling sick. You have, you know, your hair loss. So you have a self-image crisis in the middle of that. There's a lot of other
Hmm.
things that go on. How can you positively think positive throughout that process? It's incredibly one of the hardest battles you have is your own head, right? Your own mental health.
yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
So to keep positive 100% of the time is an unrealistic expectation.
Oh, it is, yeah. But you know, it's always good to bear in mind, though. But there are certain sort of stages in life when you do literally throw your hands up in the air and sort of, and if you do run with it, it can be quite destructive.
See, I'm positive all the time,
Well, there you go.
even when I'm not. It's positive.
And then we come into namaste, which is, you know, accepting that in all the good there's bad and in all the bad there's good, right?
Yeah,
Hmm.
And in this, there's a huge amount of self-responsibility and recognition of what is your responsibility and what isn't your responsibility.
Yeah, it's sort of like trying to weigh your thoughts, isn't it? And sort of not to take on sort of too much of the. It's sort of trying to sort of focus your thoughts and sort of like getting rid of all the rubbish around it as well, because there's a lot of stuff around your your potential sort of thought that that can sabotage it. I suppose would be the best way to describe it.
Okay. So I'm leading you through this, by the way, guys, so we can get to the point that
Okay,
we're trying to get to. So when you're actually dealing with anything, whether it
right,
be, you know, you have a lot to weigh up in your head. You have a lot of your inner demons and inner belief systems and programming, you know, that's gone on throughout your life, and you have to work through those layers to get to the essential essence of it to
right.
maintain the positive out of it. And when we talk positive, you're talking, it's not like, oh, everything's like unicorn and sparkles and everything's wonderful. It's not that's actually quite negative in its own way, because if you expect everything to be like that all the time, then you're going to be let down. You're going to be let down, because life isn't like that, right?
Yeah.
So being positive is making the best of something, even in a crap situation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think a famous one, I say a famous one, it's famous to me because I lived it. When we first moved in the house, all we had was a couple of deck chairs and a crate that we'd packed up some stuff. And we sat in our front room the very first night on these things, and we opened up a bottle of wine. And we were just so thrilled that we got our first house. Didn't matter that it was it was like it needed doing up from scratch, and we was there, like spent 2 years doing it up. So we lived in a building site for 2 years. But that first night, I remember distinctly, we were so happy with, on these deck chairs with this table, like this box as a table, and it was just ours. It was just ours.
Right. Yeah.
But you could have looked around and gone, oh my God, we've got like 2 years of hard work, and how are we going to afford this? And oh my God, like we're sleeping on a mattress on the floor, and oh, it's awful. You're not though, are you?
Well, no. I mean, you're sort of like, you've sort of you're seeing the positive in that. I mean, sort of like the big thing of that would be sort of getting the house, isn't it? And all the possibilities that sort of frees you up to do. I mean, you've got, once you get that initial thing, which for you was the house, that cuts out all the anxieties running up to actually getting the house, doesn't it? Because sort of actually looking to buy a property and stuff. Let's take property. It's a nightmare, isn't it?
Yeah.
Move, and then you've got the moving in and all that sort of stuff. It's an absolute. Well, they do say it's the most stressful thing we do in life.
They say that getting married, buying a house, and divorce are the 3 most stressful things you can go through.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
I would argue there's probably, I was going to say, I would say there's probably others in there as well, but, life lessons, life transformation things are the 3 things. I've done all 3. A lot. Do I feel wiser and more positive because of it? Some days. Other days I'm bitter and twisted.
You must be the wisest person on earth.
Unless you get me on a negative Annie day, and then I'm an absolute nightmare. But there are things like, we talked about self-responsibility before, and I remember watching an inspirational speaker, and he was actually talking about abuse on, how do you deal with abuse? How do you be positive about abuse? You don't. That's not something you can be positive about. However, what you can do is recognise that it's not your responsibility. That wasn't your responsibility. Your responsibility is to move on from that, to live the life that you best you can be out of that. You can't change what's happened to you, but you can choose to not let it affect you.
Yeah, I totally get that.
Very easy to say.
It's easy to say, as I say, but yes, I do get it. I do get that.
So we're starting to recognise that your thoughts, the impact of your environment on you is not as easy as to say, I think, therefore I am. And that positive think, you can't be positive 100% of the time, right? There's a lot within that you have to work through. You have to work through belief systems and external influences that have perhaps negatively impacted you. You have to work through your own insecurities and your own demons within that, right?
Yeah.
So once you've gone through all that process and you think, oh, okay, I've dealt with all that crap, I can now focus and concentrate on what it is I want to manifest.
Right.
So we come down to focus and concentration. Now, if you think in regards of meditation, Paul, are you following me?
Yeah, just.
He's sitting there cross-legged already.
Giving it on. Yeah, when you think of that, we talk about focus and concentration. Again, Easy to say, not so easy to do. It takes practice to do it, right? Because it's like empty your mind of thought. Okay, well, I need to put the washing on. No, I've got to empty my mind of thought. Okay, so I need to put milk on the washer. No, I empty my mind of thought. And there are various techniques you can use to do that, right?
Yeah.
But focus and concentration is part of that process. And they talk about when you do like a spell work or occult work or something like that, you have to be 100% focused on what it is you're doing.
Yes.
Bit like writing an essay. You have to be 100% focused to get it done, right?
Oh, yeah. And they're usually hard enough.
I don't think I was ever focused doing my essays at school.
Right. So now we've sort of like got the understanding of how you should think. Let's talk about emotion.
Right.
Okay. Emotion. Emotions are very hard. Again, if you can control your emotions, you can control your mind, right?
Yes, I'd agree with that.
Let me ask you both then. Can you control your emotions?
Yeah. Sure.
I can, yes, now, sort of like, I can find it difficult at times, but we seem to be on a good sort of stretch at the moment, should I say, but generally now, yes.
Paul?
Yeah, no, I can. I mean, probably going back about 10 years now. I think going back the 10 years, I would have said no, but yeah, I've just learned how to control certain emotions, and yeah, I'm quite easygoing, laid back.
Yeah, I am sort of like
Yeah.
consciously aware that you should not act on emotion. You should, if you do get emotional and you've got to make a decision, you've got to take time out.
Mm-hmm.
Because an emotional-based decision or action probably won't serve you very well.
No.
No,
But I
I
have to
mean,
say age has taught us
if
that, right?
Yeah,
if someone wrongs you, for example, just I just tend to just leave it, let it go, because I know I'm annoyed, and I'll walk away. But then, as time goes on, you just think to yourself, it's not worth retaliating.
well, yeah, you sort of, or just to take time out to sort of think of
Mm,
how to respond if it warrants a response at all.
mm.
But you're talking now, after years of experience.
Well,
I can
yeah, I
guarantee
mean,
you can look back at your past and you've dealt with the situation purely emotionally and not thought about it at
Oh
all.
yeah,
yeah, I mean,
definitely.
sort of most of the teenage years, sort of dealt on that,
Mm.
sort of, your sort of adult, sort of your early adult life, I suppose. I mean, most people, I should imagine, it's only when you get older. I mean, it's funny, life, I mean, it's and everything seems to be upside down and the wrong way round. It's a shame we don't have this knowledge at the start. You only get it at the end of life, don't you? You finally sort of crack it, and then you curl up your toes and you're off.
Yeah, but you say that, but at the age of 14, they all know it anyway.
Well, yeah,
Listen to my 16-year-old, you think I'm like shriveled up and never had life experience, according to him. But at the end of the day, it's something you learn. Now, I'm a lot more emotional than you two. I hold my hands up to that.
right,
If a
yeah,
situation happens, I will go to my friends, offload all that emotion in whatever
Mm,
way it is, think about it, and then deal with the situation that needs to be dealt with. As you guys know, because you've been the sounding board quite often.
yeah,
But I'm not acting on it, I'm working through it.
yeah,
yeah.
So effectively, if I'm having like a meltdown, for example, or I'm really cross about something or upset about something, you guys are understanding enough to know that that's what's happening. That's the process I have to do to be able to work through that.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't let it affect you. You just allow yourselves to be a sounding board. I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm not asking you to get involved. I'm just asking for maybe advice. What do you think? Am I right in thinking like this? And you'll give me your opinions and your advice. But if I don't take it, you don't get offended by that. You understand that it's a sounding board situation. I'm working through that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So my emotion doesn't actually impact you two, and I'm using you two because there are other friends that get this as well, but, because we're on the show, it doesn't actually impact you. It doesn't. You turn off that phone or the Skype or whatever and you forget about it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not a negative impact on you.
No, but, I mean, we're always there to, like, I don't know, find a place really well hidden that you can hide bodies and things if you need to. Got shovels in the cupboard.
We've got the shovels to go.
We're all ready and prepared, so just say the word, And
yeah, the point is,
no, that's it. It's we just let you have a bit of a rant off, and then you're okay after that. It's just venting that frustration.
Yeah, in a safe zone.
Yeah.
Knowing it's not going to mentally impact the people because they understand where the emotion comes from. However, if I aimed my wrath at one of you because I felt you had done something wrong, then you would be emotionally attached to that, and you would be emotionally impacted by that. You might be indignant, you might feel guilty, you might feel, unfair, that it's, unfair. You might
Guilty.
feel angry.
What's guilt? I don't know that one.
There's a lot. You would be emotionally impacted
upset,
by that, right?
Perhaps, whatever, yeah. See,
I know, obviously, that me and Kerry have known each other for absolutely ages. And, we've had our disagreements, but we sort of, like, agree to disagree sometimes and just move on. It's never really had any impact at all.
At the time,
Kerry,
it did.
I don't know.
Yeah. To be honest, it has at some point when we've had set twos, Paul. We've worked through it because we're friends, and that's what friends do, right?
Yeah.
But at the time when we was in the middle of that circumstance, I can't actually think of one that was bad enough, though. To be fair,
no, I know. But whatever happened, was what it's saying, doesn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, but I'm trying to demonstrate that it is. You can emotionally impact somebody with your emotion.
Yeah.
So emotion has energy, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm getting it
respect,
now. Yeah.
So if emotion has energy and you can put it out there and it can impact, even if no reaction is, they say no reaction is a reaction, that can be very impactful. And you're not actually putting, you're just not reacting. That's still impactful. That's still an energetic form on another person. You can then manipulate somebody through emotion, even if you're not expressing emotion.
Yes. I think I know where you're heading with this now, yeah.
Are you with me? Do we agree? Do we disagree?
I agree.
Yeah, okay, I can see what you're getting at, yeah.
Oh, God, it's taken me 23 minutes to get to that point. So do we then, or is there an understanding then that emotion has a vibration?
Good
a frequency?
Possibly, yes. So sort of, I'm having, they say words are, I'm not, Yes, I get what you're saying, that I can say something to you that could upset you, through, I can react to something that's going on with me, pass it on to you. Yes, I get that, yeah. But whether that's sort of like a frequency coming out, and sort of, I don't know, but possibly it is.
Right, so I could say something really nasty, but say in a way, or have an energy behind what I'm saying that is a joke, is jest.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know it's a joke. I could say exactly the same thing to you and put nasty, negative vibration
Yeah.
behind it, and you know it's nasty. You know it's a
Yeah.
bitch.
You know it's a dig.
Yeah? But you know when there's exactly the same thing's been said, but it's the energy, emotional energy that you've put behind it as to how it's interpreted.
Yeah.
So there we go. In regards to a word, if you say something monotone, it has no frequency to it. It's monotone. It has no energetic frequency to it. You haven't got
But
a
isn't
how that is meant.
yeah, but isn't that just what context is about?
That's part of it.
So it isn't just all emotional. It's the context of the word or phrase that you're using that upsets someone. And as a spiritist said to me quite a long time ago, that if you do something in your actions that you believe is right for you, you should do it. If it upsets anyone else, it's their problem, not yours,
Yeah.
because they're upsetting themselves because of what you've done. And it's not your problem, so you shouldn't feel guilty or anything like that because you're doing the right thing for you. And again, there's no
But that's
other than making me happy through my actions. I do it for myself, not for you, if that makes sense.
but then you have to have respect and communication within that to make the situation right. If something's right for you, you have
Yeah,
every right to do that for you to keep yourself happy. But
yeah,
if you do that in a way that's like, say for example, this is where ghosting in dating world comes in.
Oh, yeah.
Right, so you're dating somebody. One person's really involved in that. They think this is going really well. Oh my god, you know, it's like my soulmate.
yeah,
Oh my god. The other person's thinking, not sure. And then all of a sudden you get ghosted. Right, it's the worst feeling in the world. It's cowardly. To sit
yeah.
down and
No,
have that
that is a
honest
bit.
conversation,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, clears up a lot of misconceptions. The other person knows exactly where they stand, yeah, and you've dealt with it in the right way. Intentionally, you've put a good intention out there. Although it's a negative situation, like you're going to break this person's heart, effectively, you still have to confront that and
yeah. But
deal with
again,
it
that's
in a compassionate way.
just common decency.
Compassion being positive.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about the whole dating thing, but
It was an
just in general,
example.
if I wanted to do something and I went ahead and do it, I wouldn't be thinking, oh, it's going to upset that person, it's going to upset that person, it's going to upset them, so I need to go round and ask them, not for their permission, but I'm just to give them a heads up. This is what I'm going to do. I
Explain
know
your
you're not going to like it,
intention.
but it's just tough.
Explain your intention.
Yeah, I
But then,
suppose.
should you really be explaining yourself to other people when you want to do something?
That's out of
If there's
respect and compassion.
if there's two people involved, then
Yeah.
yes.
Because you're both energetically connected because of that situation.
Yeah, and if you take the relationship scenario, then yes.
Oh yeah, no, in that situation, and you're in a relationship, yeah. But I don't know. Say for example, I wanted to move. Now, do I have to go around all my friends and say to them, "I'm going to move," just to give you a heads up, just to let you know this is where I'm moving to?
No, because that's your decision. But you wouldn't just
But
move.
that's what I
But
mean.
you
I'm
wouldn't
doing
move
it for
without
me.
telling them.
I don't know. Some of them might. No, I'm joking.
Then they're not your friends. Because you don't care how that will impact them. If I was moving, I don't know, say I moved from Canvey away from my friends and family and I was moving up north, yeah, I wouldn't just
Yeah.
do it. I would say, guys, I'm going to move and I'm going to move up north. And, I've looked into this, I've dealt, it's a fait accompli, basically. It's going to happen. But that's
Right.
what's going to happen. And this is when it's going to happen. And just because I'm that far away doesn't change our relationship at all.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
going to be for you rather than you just up in sticks going and then phoning them and saying, by the way, I now live up north. Do you know what I mean? They'll be a bit like fed up with you about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, she could
Even
have
if
said.
you look at the station situation when we moved stations, yeah, if I'd just
Yeah.
done it
Yeah.
and hadn't discussed it with you, you'd have been, what the hell are you on, Kel? You don't make that,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But what? What? Really? You didn't even talk to us about it? It turns it negative, doesn't it? Whereas if we communicated and we made the decision
Yeah.
that we made, and we've gone on and we've done what we want, what was right for me at that time, what was right for all of us at that time
Well,
when we
yeah.
looked at it. It wasn't just me, but all of us sat down, we discussed it. It was a move I was going to do. You guys was like, yep, that's the right decision, let's do it. So we did it. And if I hadn't have discussed that, how negative, you would have been very negative towards me.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And we might not have spoken, but the negative vibration of that would have resonated.
Yeah.
In the same way, if a relationship get ghosted, there's a negative vibration going out there about that situation. That emotional connection you felt, which once was positive, has turned into something negative. And it's a vibration that's out there. You can't direct it at anybody but the person. I know when I've upset somebody, they won't talk to me or whatever. You know that
Yeah.
they're thinking negatively about you. They're not
Oh,
saying
yeah.
it to you, but you know that negativity is there, out there, being directed in your direction because you're the one that they're thinking about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because once you send out a negative thought, negative action, which your friends will perceive as being negative, once that is done, it is very difficult to retract it, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have to really
You have
sort
to
of
do a lot
work.
more work to get ground made up, as it were.
Yeah,
What is it they say when trust is broken? It's hard to get back, right?
yeah,
Oh, definitely.
So we agree, then, do we, that each definite thought produces a double effect. So it's a radiating vibration coming out,
Yeah.
and it becomes a floating form.
right.
Now, this is something that Annie Besant and Charles Wester Leadbeater of the Theosophical Society came up with. And they said that every thought you have produces a thought form. Now, I will say this, the Theosophical Society did look at concept, philosophical being, theosophical, sorry,
Yeah.
was a bit way out there sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Some of their stuff, but the core of the theosophical movement, I think, I get it. It's something I do get. It's one of those things I think, oh, that's good, and whether you put it into practice or not, it's up to you. But yeah, they certainly do have some funny ideas, but the sort of, like the core of it is quite sound.
Yeah. But they actually first put out this thought form. Thought. And this is where they were basing it on. The concepts we've discussed in the first half an hour, basically, to get to that,
Yeah.
is actually where how they rationalised their concept,
Right.
right? And I know I've got about, it's probably quite long-winded out there, but I was trying to get people to understand the concept before we introduced the concept.
Right. Yeah.
The
we got it.
concept of thought form.
Yep.
Right. Now,
And what's the day today?
I don't know. I've lost all track of days, mate. I know her thought forms. So thinking and feeling produce a thought form.
Right.
Okay.
well,
So basically,
yes,
they saw a thought form as a form of entity, not necessarily a long-standing one, It comes and goes. It dissipates. It changes. It evolves because it's an energetic form.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm.
Really? Do we think that? Think of it
I
in...
don't.
Do you think a thought becomes an entity?
Um. Yeah,
I am aware of people that think this and sort of stuff, and I think I know where you're going with this, which we're going to talk about towards the end of the show. But there are certainly sort of disciplines, people that do disciplines in life that actually believe that a thought form can actually turn into something physical. Yes.
See, I think, from my perspective, we'll talk about the actual true entity thought form, as I say, like a bit later in the show. But the fleeting thought becoming a thought form, I don't think is right. I think it's more of an emotional vibration that will dissipate like ripples on a pond.
Oh, right, yeah,
yeah.
it's not a strong sort of, it doesn't have character or anything like that. It's not,
Exactly.
yeah.
But
Exactly.
It
what
will
if?
dissipate rather quickly if
So what
handled
if
correctly.
someone puts focus on a symbol, for example, and that symbol would be world known?
Hmm.
Could the collective thought patterns give that energy um, a continual source of energy?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's actually a belief system. We talk about sacred geometry, reoccurring symbols and reoccurring patterns in nature are basically DNA prints that have got an energetic form all of their own, which you can utilise to help with your manifestation process because of the amount of years various people over the years have invested energy into that symbol. So yes.
Yes,
See,
I
I
mean,
just see it on Supernatural, so that yeah,
Well, I don't care where you've got that from, but that is exactly that. We use that quite a lot
yeah,
in forms of like we're magical ritual. We use that in crystal gridding. We use that that concept, And when you start looking at nature and the reoccurring patterns that occur in nature, it is imprinted in the universal energy. So
yeah.
to utilize that, you're linking into universal energy. It's a deeper power source than just a thought form you put out there like a ripple on a pond. Like when we talked about emotional connection between people, that's the ripple on the pond effect. It will dissipate, it will change, it will evolve, it will disappear. So things over time, yeah, like you say, nowadays we step back, we think about the situation, we think about all the different scenarios, we work around it. Is it really important? That's what my mum always used to say to me when I used to go off on one with her. She used to go, is this important? And
Mm.
I think in the long term, no, it's not. In fact, most things in the long term aren't. They're not worth your energy. So why do you give it energy?
yeah.
Mm.
Why do you invest so much of your thought, into it?
See, for
See, and
me,
this is my point about crystals,
right,
because you're putting if someone's like, for example, I don't know, let's go with the obsidian because it isn't no, tourmaline. That's the one that protects you, isn't it? It's a protection stone. Okay,
it
so
hardens your aura, yeah.
because because someone's told you that's what it's for. It might actually be for like unusual hair growth, but because
No,
someone's told you that it's a protection stone, it's your belief system that you're putting into that stone, and that's what makes that stone have its power.
no. Every organic structure, whether that be a crystal,
Yeah.
whether that be a plant, whether that be an animal, whether that be a human, whether that be a seed, whether that be a flower, anything organic has
Mm.
its own specific energy signature that makes it unique. So, for example, the general overlaying properties of a human being. We all have certain traits that we all relate to. Yeah? We all have 2 eyes, 2 legs, 2 arms, generally, right?
Yeah.
Occasionally there's a few mutations in there. And we all have general underlying behavioural traits that we all stick to, that we all have a blueprint for.
Mm-hmm.
But overlaying that, we have a lot of other stuff that makes us unique. That's exactly the same for every organic structure, which makes every crystal different, which makes every plant different, which makes every, seed different. It might produce the same oak tree, but when you look at one oak tree and you look at another, they're not identical. They're not clones of each other. They have their own characteristics, the same as humans. So everything organic has its own unique energy signature. So
every crystal
has a baseline energy signature, which is the general properties you read about in the books. Yeah, but when you start working,
that's what gives it the protection.
When you start working with the crystal itself, then you start linking into its unique energy signature. So I could have 2 black tourmalines, for example.
Okay.
They're both going to be useful at hardening my aura. So I can protect myself better in regards to empathic situations. I can protect myself better in not having somebody else's emotion affect me, or an external energy source, if you want to look at it in regards to paranormal investigation, for example, affecting my energy source. Yeah? So that's its baseline signature, but that crystal will also have a unique energy signature, which is how come you can walk into a room full of amethyst and only one piece of amethyst will be the one that calls to you, or one piece of tourmaline in the whole box of tourmalines will be the one that you pick up and buy. Do you see what I mean?
Okay.
And that's what makes it different. So when we talk about unique energy, right, so we've gone off topic a little bit here because we're talking about thought forms. So it's not about what you're putting onto the crystal in that way. It's the crystal's got its own energy signature, and you're melding that energy signature with your own energy signature, and it's causing an effect.
Oh, okay.
The scientists out there are going to go, pure woo-woo. I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that is the belief system. In the same way, the belief system, like you say, about symbols and power, right? But if enough people think of that over a longer period of time, then that's going to build the energy behind that.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's about a longer term, more deeper energy, the thought forms, energetic imprint.
Yeah, going to like the symbol, I suppose there's one symbol which has been affected a lot over the last 80 years, which was totally flipped on its head, is the swastika.
Yeah.
That is a very good example of it, isn't it?
Yeah, because it was
so.
a symbol of peace, wasn't it?
Yeah, for thousands of years, and now it is probably it will never get its reputation, its old original sort of reputation back.
Mm-hmm.
Only because people are so dead set on offending people.
Because the energy signature of that symbol has been polluted and overlaid by historical facts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and now whenever you see that symbol doesn't mean a positive, peaceful, loving thing. That symbol is now a symbol of millions of people dying in a death camp, of a war that should never have happened, of millions of people dying in
even
war.
The variations of that symbol, which the swastika is. There's several and hundreds of variations of the hook cross. But it looks and anything that even looks slightly like it, it's
abhorrent. It's turned it abhorrent. But there are cultures around the world that haven't got that hasn't polluted that symbol for them. But for us in the Western world, it has.
Yeah.
You'll still see that symbol on buildings and stuff like that abroad. In the Islamic, and so everyone goes, oh my God, it's that, but it isn't. They've twisted it. They did turn it on its side, and it is not exact to what the symbol is, but everyone goes, oh, it's a swastika. No,
close enough.
It's not. It's different. They twisted it for their own benefit, but that's a different. We're sort of going off. So what we're saying is, thought form has power,
Yep.
Sometimes
Yeah.
it's weak, like, friendship interaction. If I think, oh, Paul's being really lazy this week, it's dissipating. And you'll redeem yourself, or we'll talk about it and it'll clear it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Whereas if I'm doing a ritual, it's a deeper thought form because there's a lot more focus and concentration gone into that.
Yeah.
Correct? Not correct? Agree? Don't agree?
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
No, I agree.
I sort of
Yeah.
get your gist, yeah.
Although I'd never be lazy because I'm hard worker.
No, it was an example.
I know.
It was just an example. It's
I was
like
giving
you
you an
think
example,
Aunt
but
Kel's
not
being
true.
really flaky at the moment. Do you know what I mean? It's so different
No.
to how you think, God, or will you just write that blog? She's really annoying me because she hasn't finished it yet.
Okay, yeah, I'll give you that one.
Yeah? It's a dissipating thought form. It's not an entity that's going to like rock up at my house and go, Paul's really annoyed with you because you ain't finished your blog yet.
Yeah, it doesn't come knocking at the door.
And I go, oh, I'm really sorry, Mr. Entity. I'm making sure I change my blog. It's not, that's not how it works. It's a dissipating, isn't it?
That'd save the emails, wouldn't it?
It would save the emails. Oh, the things that go on in the background, people.
As you can tell, Kerry never does a blog.
Oh, clearly, I'm too slow at my blogs for Paul's liking. He's very quick. He's a lot quicker than I am. And he forever source of frustration for Paul. How long I take to make my blogs is all I can say, right? Okay, so we're talking thought forms, and we're talking about our energetic output in regard to thought forms, whether that be in an emotional outburst, whether that be in an emotional connection to somebody, whether that be, I don't know, a ritual even, like going into a deeper kind of thought form. Now, A.P. Sinnett wrote, thoughts are things. They have tenacity, coherence and life, and that they are real entities. Thought forms in general are usually very weak and have a very short lifespan, unless you know the art and science of creating a powerful thought form.
Ooh.
So there is an art and a science, he believes, that means you can create a powerful thought form.
Well,
What do we think of that little cookie?
well, if we agree that they have a short lifespan, that you actually can create it, yeah, surely somebody that is more adept at creating thought forms, there would be a progression, and you could, produce something a lot more powerful, because you're admitting that these things exist in the first place, albeit very weakly.
Okay, so if someone that's attuned to doing this sort of work can create a powerful one, then could people that are not attuned to it be capable of creating a spiritual energy that doesn't last too long? So when paranormal investigators go into locations, could they be somehow inadequate enough to be able to produce an energy just because of their what they're there for, but because they're not attuned to it, their energy that they're creating only appears for short times, and that could also account for some of these people that go, oh look, a spiritual orb that can't be explained by dust and moisture and all the other bits and pieces. Could that be what it is?
I believe that is partly what's happening in the field. You're going out with a set intention to go to a haunted location that's got a backstory that you know about generally before you go. Yeah. And then when you go, you might get some minor activity, shall we say. You put it onto the character, even down to a shadow figure or, a shadow or something. And you go, oh, we captured the, I don't know, Black Monk of Pontefract or whatever it be.
Yeah.
Yeah. because you've gone in with that, and because plenty of other people have done that as well, that energy imprint is already out there. So you're actually giving it more power.
Yeah.
Even though you haven't done it as a collective, you've done it as separate individuals, each team going in and doing that, working to that intention, with a character already in mind. Yeah. So they're not intentionally creating it. They're not setting on a ritual to create a thought form that's going to like haunt somewhere. Do you know what I mean? That's something different. That would be something you would have to be very adept at. And it has been done. I know of a case where this has been done and put into a location, and it's still haunted to this day. And it was a thought form that was created by a series of occultists trying it out for an experiment. But they kept very quiet about it. I know it's been done, right?
So a group of individuals can create a thought form then?
It wouldn't be particularly strong, but it would be a possibility.
Does I get the thought form coming from the individual, but because all thoughts are unique to the individual, whether two or three people can. But mind you have the Philip experiment, don't you? Which is.
But then, if they're putting their thoughts into one object, then surely a group of people focusing their thought process and energy onto one point of focus could be why these things will be created by more than one person.
So if a thought form is made of energy and contains emotional and mental matter, you've got a well-gelled team, yeah? So you've got a paranormal team that go out every other weekend or however often they go out, but they work really well together. Their energies work. We say this, don't we? If your team is a really good, well-gelled, connected team, you get better results.
Yeah.
Now, if you're going out on a paranormal investigation as a group, a well-gelled, formed group, you're going out with the intention to do the paranormal investigations, ghost hunty bit, yeah, in a location. So you're all focused on the same location. You're all focused on the same backstory or alleged hauntings that already occur at that place.
Yeah.
And I will defy anybody that says I don't do you might not do deep historical research, but you damn well know a basic outline of what that place is and, you know, why it's haunted or supposed to be haunted. Yeah. You can't be in the paranormal field without going, right, I say to you, we want to go to Margram Castle. I don't know hardly anything about Margram, apart from the fact I know it's beautiful and people have investigated it. That alone, Margram, that alone is enough for me to have the expectation that that is haunted by something, that there is a spirit in that place.
Yeah.
With that intention, as a group, you're going into a place, is that enough to create paranormal activity off of a thought form you've all created unwittingly? I would say is a tremendous possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sort of put like that, yeah.
Because your thought process is focusing on the building, isn't it? So again, with more people going, you're all focusing on that building.
We all have a basic outline of what a ghost is or might be, or what paranormal activities. So, yeah, and I get it.
It's a concept. I can't prove this. Experimentation has been done on thought forms, as we will discover, but it is a concept that needs to be considered rather than jumping straight away to, it's a spirit. Possibly. And the human factor is in there every single step of the way. The clearer the thought, the more well defined the thought form. That could be why you're not getting a clear defined apparition or a clear defined form of paranormal activity, because they haven't got the clearness of thought. Whereas, like, you talked about the Phillips experiment, they sat down, they created a whole backstory, they created an image, they talked about him as if he was a real person. A well-defined thought in a group created paranormal activity. What would be classed as paranormal activity. But they started off creating that backstory. They spent a lot of time putting the meat on the bones, as it were, of that entity.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't done overnight. But,
and that started off with a bunch of psychologists sitting around going, can we do this? Well, let's try it. What do we need to do? We need to create a person. We need to create a thought form. And they all invested in this. I mean, God, they came up with a whole historical referenced background for this character. As I say, they got pictures of him. They'd got his relationship statuses. You know what I mean? They really had gone into town on this one. And then they started holding seances. And the seances then started with rappings, knocks. And then it started moving the table. Feelings of people outside the circle, or a person outside the circle. Intelligent responses coming from a thought form they'd created. Fascinating.
Oh, yeah, it is an interesting case, that one.
Absolutely fascinating. Many people have tried to recreate this as well. I would say this over the years. Whether or not they're successful, none I don't think has been as successful as the Philip experiment. But it takes, again, you look at some of these big experiments that we reference, you know, like the Phillips experiment. I think it took them a long time before they got any results. The same as the skulls experiment. It took them a long time before they got any results of sitting there. I think the skulls experiment was like, what was it, every other week or every week for 5 years.
Like 5 years. This was a long time.
And I think the Philip experiment was, 18 months? But that was continual sitting at it.
Yeah.
It was very intense. It's an intense process. And, I mean, God, just trying to get us three together for a weekend is sometimes a challenge, isn't it? I mean, at the moment, it's not happened at all because of the situation. But in normal life, sometimes just getting a weekend where we're all free, not working, or, you know, other constraints that are put on you from friends and other friends and family. Our extended circles are quite big. So to actually fit a weekend where it's just the three of us, and I'm not talking about partners, I'm talking just the three of us, has proved incredibly challenging at times.
Yeah.
So to do an experiment, you've got to understand how much it consumes you, and you have to be completely committed to it to recreate this experiment. Correct?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Right.
I mean, the commitment.
So we've gone a bit around the houses in the first half, trying to get the concept out there, the understanding of where this philosophical thought has come from, where the bones of this is, you know, this idea has come from, why people think like this. You know, we've talked about energetic imprinting, you know, from symbols and organic material. We've talked about lots of different concepts in the first half, but this is going to bring you to the philosophical idea or concept of thought forms having energy that take on a life of their own, external to a person.
Yeah.
Okay? And we've come to the end of the first half of the show.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
This is a big old topic, this one. This is quite and it's very complex. It's not as easy as we keep going back to energy focus, concentration, energy frequency. Oh God, I can't remember the quote now. It's Tesla. Energy frequency and vibration.
Yeah.
Yeah. We keep going back to that as famous Tesla quote. And this is where we go. And does thought have those three things? So keep that in your head while we go to a quick break, and we'll rejoin you right after this.
Hello, Harry Price here. If there's nothing me and my friends enjoy more here on the other side, it is to sit back and relax and listen to the Paranormal Concept Show, right here on the PAUK Radio Network. Broadcasting a plethora of interesting and informative content for all your paranormal needs. Find them across social media to keep up to date with forthcoming shows and all their other adventures. Hello, is there anybody there?
And welcome back to the Paranormal Concept Show, exclusive to the Paranormal UK Radio Network. Now, before the break, we sort of went around the houses and we talked about emotional connection and how we can impact other people with their emotions, and that emotions have energy, and all basically coming down to the basic thought of thought forms. Can you create your reality through thought? And can you create an external entity using thought?
Well,
quite a big concept, guys. I think you'll agree.
Yes, it would be.
Yeah, it is very. So the art and science, we talked about before, the art and science of thought forms, creating powerful thought forms. We know that thought forms have a ripple effect that generally come, go and dissipate. They're not actually turning into an energetic form per se. They're out there, but they come and go very quickly. But there are more powerful thought forms that you can create. How do we do this then? Do we actually need to talk to it? Should we be putting this out there is the first question.
Well,
Ethically,
yeah.
should we be telling people how to create a thought form?
I think that people do it already without even knowing it.
But is it powerful, or is it just because it's been repeated?
Probably because it's been repeated.
So it's
Yeah.
it's an energetic form that isn't intelligent, so it's not harmful in any way.
Yeah, I think the majority of the thought forms that are out there are probably created, quite, the people aren't realising they're creating them and stuff, and then, and they would be missing a few of the assets to make them a more stronger, powerful thought form. To become independent. I think for the amateur, if you did create a powerful enough thought form that was to take a life of its own, that would be more by chance than by design.
Yeah, I agree
So,
with that.
are we basically saying then that paranormal investigators and ghost hunters out there that go out every weekend or whatever are creating thick ghosts?
Weak thought forms is what we're suggesting.
Weak thought forms, yes. Sort of like because we know what sort of like the ghost hunts like. We've all been on them and sort of stuff, and we never get anything sort of concrete or anything sort of thing. It's always just tantalisingly out of reach. It's the occasional sort of EVP and sort of stuff like that. There's nothing more sort of solid than that. So I would say, for the majority of the time, of these thought forms that are out there, as we discussed in the first half of the show, or as Kerry articulated, they are very weak. And there's no real sort of intention behind them.
I would also like to say sometimes I think if you focus on something, you may be falsely creating something as well. You might believe it is created, but it isn't. So, for example, look, again, total woo-woo. Look at symbols and signs, right? You see repeating numbers everywhere. 222, 111 angel numbers, right?
Yeah.
If you start focusing on that, if you are mentally primed, for seeing 222, you suddenly start seeing it everywhere. Believe it or not.
That's right.
Right? So,
yeah.
And if you're looking for signs and symbols as a confirmation from spirit, you'll start seeing signs and symbols as confirmation from spirit. I was fluffing up a cushion earlier on and put the cushion back, didn't think anything of it, went back into the room and there's a white feather. I could have gone, oh my God, it's a sign, if I was that way inclined. Yeah?
Yeah.
The fact is, it come from the cushion. I wasn't even aware it was a feather cushion, to be fair. But
it was a sign that you need a new cushion.
Yeah, basically. It's getting a bit threadbare, clearly, because the feathers are escaping. But it's little things like that. I could have seen, oh my God, it's a sign. I don't know where it came from. It came from nowhere. When in actual fact, it's come from something I'm not really aware of, which was a feather pillow that I puffed up. And the reason I wasn't aware it was a feather pillow is because it's one on a sofa that doesn't get used very often. Do you see what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think if you look for signs and symbols and things like that, then you can read it as being something like that. So you can falsely create something for yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read there was a guy I follow on socials. He says, paranormal activity. I get my words out. Paranormal activity. I can't say it. Paranormal activity is everywhere. You just have to look for it. And he had this cup on the floor and it was moving, and I was thinking that's not paranormal, but he's seeing that as being paranormal.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? There could have been a million other explanations for why that cup was moving, but he's jumped immediately to the assumption that it is paranormal, but that's what he wants to believe.
Yeah.
And so he puts it out as that. He's not creating that to move because he's thought of it, or, you know what I mean? Or he's created a thought form because of that. He's just seeing what he wants to see, confirmation bias.
Yeah.
Right? And so you have to be a little bit careful. This is a very different concept to just confirmation bias and seeing what you want to believe. Mm-hmm. This is actually an energetic form, not a confirmation bias scenario. Hayley is a ghost, actually, has written a blog recently on this kind of thing, and she used to investigate a hotel. And when she investigated it, she was talking to the landlady, and she said, it's really funny because it's all made up. It's completely bonkers. We've made up this fake ghost just to get the name. Yeah. The most haunted in England or wherever it was.
In Devizes, wasn't it?
Yeah, and basically loads and loads of paranormal teams went in, investigated it, got tenuous activity going on. But in the end, it became like she became a victim of her own success because the landlady ended up being terrified of being in the hotel on her own.
Yeah,
was it then a thought form that got created, or was it just her belief system built up over the years because she had so many people telling her that there was activity in there, even though she knows the story's made up of originally? So you could look at that in two different ways. You know what I mean? You could look at that thought form was then created, so there was then activity in that hotel because of the amount of people and the belief systems growing around this place that is haunted. The landlady became terrified, and she wasn't originally because she knew it was bunkum. She knew it had been made up. Go check that blog out. It's very thought-provoking. Hayley is a ghost. You know, so you've got to be careful. Sometimes your own mind gets carried away with that concept of, oh my God, it's haunted, it's spirit. Yeah, when it's not actually anything at all. It's not a thought form. It's possible that that's what happened in that situation. It's possible that the woman just freaked herself out totally.
Yeah, well, that happens a lot.
Which can happen a lot. We see that many times on paranormal investigations, don't we? Right? So you have got to... So if we're creating a thought form, Alice Bailey suggested that it was the process of creating a concept or building a thought form is viewed as a deeply esoteric magical act. So this is something you are deliberately going in to create. Okay, the plan for the cosmos was furnished by the ideation of the universe. So the belief system there is that because there was an idea of the universe, it was then created. And the construction labour was left to the hosts of intelligent powers and forces, again giving us the idea of the God complex. The God created because he believed, he wanted it, he created it. Right? This means that everything starts off as a thought, that it contains a blueprint, which the creation is built, including the universe. So this is where the underlying belief is you can create this. It's in the blueprint of the universe because the universe started off as a thought.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
I get that.
That's the creator idea. He had this idea and he built it. So he thought let there be light, and there was light.
If you build it, they will come.
Well, we certainly did. We overtook it. It's like, humans are a good idea. Oh, I don't think they are now. There's far too many of them down there. And half of them don't believe in me.
But yet, in times of trouble, they all pray.
They all go to God, yeah. Even the most atheist person.
Yeah.
So it's about the genesis, the creation, the spark of creation. So you have to have the thought originally to do it.
Right.
Okay, so you have to harness the power of your thoughts. We go to focus and concentration, right?
Yep.
Now, you've got that's your starting point. And we talked about the Phillips experiment. We said, God, the commitment that you need to the project.
Well, yeah. I mean,
even if you're doing it solitary, you need commitment to that project. You're not going to get anywhere if. I mean, God, I was doing a ritual that is still taking me forever, and that's because I dip in and out. I'm not focused and doing it every single night. Do you know what I mean? But it is a long process, and I've not had the time well, I have had the time because I've sat around in the house doing nothing for the last year. I say I haven't had the time. I've had plenty of time, but no, the time that would be optimal to do it isn't always convenient to do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
On a committed basis, which is why I'm not really getting anywhere with it.
Yeah, you have to be in the right mindset to do it, I suppose.
Yeah.
So this is part of the art and science of that. Is the focus, the concentration, the power behind it, the commitment to it. It is that germ of an idea to start with and being committed to that idea. So this is a basic manifestation process, actually. For, even if you want more prosperity and success in your life, this is, you've got to be committed to that. You can't just go, oh, universe, I want money, I need this, I need that, and expect the universe to drop it on your driveway. You have to go out there and help that process and be committed to that. And the universe will work with you to give you that, but it's not just going to send a check through the post to you.
No.
Right? I think when people think about, I think that's where actually The Secret was quite misleading. A very famous book called The Secret. And I think the power of thought is put it out there to the universe will provide. And you've got to constantly think about what it is you want. And then all of a sudden it'll appear.
Well, there was a very good line in, I think it was Evan Almighty, the comedy movie. And God was there. And he said, people pray to him to have courage. That was it. They pray to him to have courage, but does he give you courage, or does he give you a chance to be courageous?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so it does work in mysterious ways.
It's not as easy as, that's exactly it. It's not as easy as that. It is about flipping it sometimes, looking at it from a different angle and changing your own mindset as well. But there is something called a limiting money mindset, right? So within yourself, you don't believe you're worthy of it, so you stop yourself from achieving it. Because you actually, deep down in yourself, you don't think you're worthy of it, so you don't, charge the right price, or that's actually based on a self-worth thing. I'm not worthy, so why would somebody else pay for it? Do you know what I mean? So you limit that rather than putting it out there and, it's a difficult one because you don't want to put it too high because you think people won't buy it. But are you then limiting your worth? Because it is worth it because of the time, energy and value of what you've put out there.
Yeah.
So again, it's all to do with mindset and money, things like this. So you have to free yourself. Again, we've talked about priming your mind, concentration, focus, and energy, frequency, and vibration. If you put out an energetic frequency of "I'm not worthy," then how are you going to manifest that?
You're doomed before you're even started.
Because you've doomed yourself.
Yeah.
Because that's a vibration you've put out there. So this is why we talk about a lot of inner work that has to be done before you start doing it. This is really to do with, we're talking about materialistic manifestation of goals here more than anything else. But if you're going to create an entity, if you go in there thinking, oh, I'm going to create an entity, but you, underneath all that, you've got a belief system that any entity is earthbound and negative because they haven't moved over and moved on, so they're being held or they're here for a reason, and generally that reason's negative in regards to the paranormal.
Yeah.
Something bad happened to them, so they're here through trauma, that they're not a nice person. Yeah?
These are all sorts of things that constantly come up in the paranormal sort of field, isn't it? Or when you hear people talk about it.
So if you're going into manifesting an energy, oh, for God's sakes, I've got to put my teeth in. If you're going to go into a process of the art and science of actually manifesting something, deliberately setting out to manifest something, you've got to be very aware of these underlying belief systems that you've got, because you don't want to be manifesting an entity in regards to, say, the Phillips experiment kind of thing, where it's not a very nice entity.
Yeah.
Hashtag, it's a demon. You want to go in and create something that's good.
Yeah.
Right? So you've got to be very aware of what you're actually putting it out to do. You know, what you want to do. Would say this, though. There is, in the Tibetan monks do a thing where to conquer their deepest, darkest fears, they actually manifest that in front of them, and then physically they overcome that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? This is a very simplified process. I'm simplifying this a hell of a lot. But they actually manifest it in front of them, manifest a sword, and basically get rid of it by that process.
Like they did in Harry Potter with the boggart.
The boggart was a thing that could change the form of the thing they feared the most.
Yeah.
So it was already a thing before they did
Yeah,
that.
but it's the same principle.
Same principle, same principle.
Yeah.
You overcome that, and that's why it was called the ridiculous curse or something.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. Because you change it into something that doesn't make you fear that anymore.
It made it look ridiculous.
But that's a part of self-discovery, isn't it? Find out what does make, what is fear. Why do you feel worthless? Manifest that, slay it. You become more empowered because you've got rid of that bit. You've gone through that self-analysis process.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we're talking about manifesting an entity in front of us for paranormal reasons, for example, like the Phillips experiment. Then we have to be very aware of that process, that inner process, and those inner belief systems, because that energetic, or the energy you put into it, you don't want to unwittingly put something into it.
Yeah.
Like a belief system in the paranormal being not very nice people that haven't moved over. That's not always the way, but generally that's kind of what the general consensus is when you're going out paranormal investigating. Oh, it's not a very nice entity in this place. Known to throw stones, this one. Do you know what I mean? You're not going out there. I mean, it's a mental, when you watch the TV programs, that comes from that, to be fair.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm laughing saying hashtag it's a demon, but if you're kind of following the paranormal TV kind of belief systems, that's where it's all come from. That's kind of what you're thinking.
Yeah, true. And let's face it, a lot of groups, they do tend to follow the sort of TV line, and even though they probably won't admit it themselves, it is pretty much what's done on TV usually does transfer over to the paranormal investigating world.
Sadly.
Take this a step further. If you have enough thought and focus that you can create a real sentient being, they're known as tulpas.
Oh, yes, the tulpa.
Yeah? And this is actually done by somebody's imagination, by visualization techniques. So you're visualizing that as a separate entity. Now, a tulpa is incredibly interesting. When we look at guardians of water sources and stuff like that, if you look into the history and the folklore surrounding that area, you'll generally find that they've been an area that's been revered and idolised, and sacred wells and stuff like that, and you come across entities in those kind of circumstances. We label those as elementals, but they could have been a tulpa that was created years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. I can get that, yeah.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So, in the concept of mysticism, it is created an entity, a separate entity that has been created through that spiritual and mental power. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm going to need some Medache tablets tonight.
It's one of those concepts that it is very esoteric. It's a philosophical look at how creation works, manifestation techniques work. You know, it's taking it almost like that step further, and the philosophy of being able to create a thought form and the effect a thought form can actually have, and who has power over that thought form. If they're the ones that have created it, do you still have power? Does it exist beyond the thought, beyond the person who's created it in the first place? This is a massive, massive conceptual topic, but one that needs to be considered if you're working in the paranormal field, I feel.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, yes, without a doubt. I mean, you know, it's sort of, are we creating this as sort of, it's, I don't know anyone really that sort of goes into a location that sort of with that mindset.
I don't know. They don't go in there going, I'm going to create a ghost tonight. It's not as easy. If it was as easy as that, that'd be fantastic for public investigations, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But I think a small team needs to be aware of that, particularly a well-gelled team who's getting regular activity.
Yeah. If they're getting regular activity when they go out and it's sort of, you know, it is genuine, they definitely need to think about it. And I think, you know, perhaps a well-gelled team would, well, you'd hope so anyway, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, you don't know, do you? I was with a highly spiritual team. Most of us on the team had some form of level of, air quote, psychic ability. Yeah. And we would have great results every time we went out. We captured some really amazing experiences that we had that we can't explain. We lived it. We can explain it in regards to how we were feeling and what we were sensing at the time. But there's no point putting that out there because the skeptics would have a field day, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because they didn't live it. They weren't part of that process. Psychologists say you just created that situation. Very true. But if you go to the if you look at it in regards to but then again, we are creating it, we're manifesting it.
Well, yeah, a psychologist, would say, oh, you're just creating that sort of situation, and you should turn around and go, yep, I know.
Yeah.
And it's also thinking beyond just two-dimensional.
Yeah.
When you're creating something, you know, we think very much, believe it or not, we think quite two-dimensionally, when you should be thinking in a more rounded dimensional thing than a two-dimensional. We don't overthink that too much, but when you're going into that process, you need to think in a more 5D kind of dimensional process rather than the two-dimensional plane. And when you create a form, if you're going to create, it shouldn't have it should have a neutral energy, not good or bad.
Yeah.
A Tibetan will create something specifically for a specific purpose that it's trying to overcome. Yeah. But if you're actually just doing this generally, you should actually try and do it with a very neutral, neither good nor bad, energetic.
Which is sort of like a reflection of the universe, because that's neutral, isn't it? I mean, the universal energy is neither good nor bad, is it? It's neutral.
So it's an accumulation of time, energy, frequency and vibration that you're putting towards a specific intention. Not so easy, right?
Yeah.
No.
Honestly, you can start the brain cogs are turning no end on this, right? Because whatever angle, it doesn't explain every form of paranormal activity. It's just one possible explanation for one type of activity.
It's certainly something that can't be ignored.
No, it's a possible, and I'll keep saying possible explanation, but it doesn't cover every scenario. If you look at poltergeist activity, when somebody has we've looked at several cases of poltergeist over the, few weeks that, this year. When we look at poltergeist activity, 9 times out of 10, if we look at the South Shields poltergeist, the family were just completely innocent in that they, weren't paranormalists. They weren't involved in the dark arts. They weren't manifesting poltergeist activity.
I think
This does not fit that remit.
No, but I think poltergeists in general, I personally believe there's some telekinesis going on, so which could, loosely be connected to what we're talking about tonight, and you're creating the entity. But as you said, the South Shields poltergeist, I personally think it's not a poltergeist in the true sense of like the rest of them. It is a unique case, and it's got its unique activity that goes with it. So, is it a poltergeist, or is it something new that we haven't experienced yet?
I just don't think it fits this particular remit.
No.
No.
I'm thinking perhaps there's a location we do know relatively well, Kelvin Hatch. I'm wondering whether that might have some Tulpa sort of element to it. Because it's certainly, you believe it's elemental, don't you, Kerry? And it's singular, and, it's never really been defined what's actually at Kelvin Hatch. You speak to many different teams that have actually gone there, and you'll get many different answers to what actually is there.
Yeah, but how many of those teams are actually reputable and actually do know really what they're talking about?
Well, I wouldn't know, but
if you look at the history of Kelvin Hatch, there's no reason, no real reason why there should be a spirit in that place.
Yeah, a spirit in the conventional, sort of terminology. Nobody's died there. Nobody's sort of, it's just and for the listeners that don't know, Kelvin Hatch is a disused nuclear bunker. But
what wasn't researched though was the history of the area in regards to maybe a sacred well or something like that, where a tulpa might have been created.
Yeah,
that is still prevalent, and what's paranormal teams going in is actually reignited the energetic form that was created many, many years ago.
Yeah.
For a different reason. That was something we were going to look into, actually, wasn't it? But we never got around to it. And we wanted to have a look at the lie of the land on the, in the area and stuff like that, to see if there was something that was disturbed whilst they were building it, and whether or not that's the reason why people do have experiences and encounters there. But as an actual human spirit, historically, there's nothing to back that up with.
There's nothing to back that up with. No, it's more the esoteric. If you go in with that sort of viewpoint and to investigate around that, I think people will get a lot more sort of better, a lot clearer idea of what might be going on in that particular location.
It's incredibly interesting, though, when you look at it from different angles, isn't it? But like with all sorts of different theories that we've talked about over the years, between the three of us, there's not a one shape fits all of this, is there? Not at all.
No.
There's not a one theory fits all scenario.
Oh, well, that is the way that the paranormal is. It's like a potpourri of, it can it can accommodate a lot of different theories.
Well, yeah, definitely. Now, I want to talk about Alexander David Neal. Now, this is a lady in 1929. Now, she was very an anomaly in her own right in 1929 because she was she's travelled extensively.
Yeah, quite widely travelled lady, yes.
And she went into places that you wouldn't necessarily go. There were like touristy areas. She would go and travel to the extent of Tibet and go and study with the monks and stuff like that. So she was learning lots of esoteric terms from different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, she spent years studying different religions and mysticism, and she actually focused quite a lot on the Tibetan theology. And she wrote books down explaining ideas behind systems and basically her own personal adventures of travelling. And so, very courageous lady back in the day. And you've got to think 1929, it's not exactly comfortable.
Well, I think at the turn of the century, there was a lot of the women were sort of becoming slightly more independent, and the Theosophical movement was catching on. And you did get a few sort of go out in the world. But this woman, I believe she was French, wasn't she? So.
Yeah. Now, she explained it as an illusion created by spiritual energy. It can look like anything and can be mistaken for real. In extreme cases, these illusions can be solid, and if a living being can take on a life of their own and possibly outlive their creator. That's how she explained a tulpa.
Right.
She said they're created either by a spiritual entity or by a human who can properly envision the object they wish to represent as if it were real. Ooh.
It's interesting in that sort of sentence to say that a spirit can produce one as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
That was from the Tibetan belief system.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, she tried this. She decided to create one for herself, right? As you do.
Okay.
So, good theory. Let me have a go at it.
Yeah.
Now, she isolated herself, performed various rituals and techniques she had already learned, and she decided to envision I need to put my teeth in tonight, a short, fat monk, an innocent, jolly type of person.
As you would.
You know, that's quite a nice little thing, nice little companion.
I've got a Friar Tuck type character sort of just appear in my mind's eye when you read that.
Yeah, exactly.
I had a little Buddha.
Straight away, you've got a mental image of this character, right, that she's trying to create. Yeah. Now, it took a few months, and she started off by creating this living image in her mind of this monk, and she concentrated on every single detail. Right, so you don't just you give it a life in your own head, as it were. Yeah? She practiced imagining this monk constantly doing things around her that a real person would do. So she takes it out of her mind and makes it a real person external of her mind. So it becomes different. There's a subtle difference between imagining in your mind's eye this character doing it and then envisioning it outside of your head doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Now, so she did this constantly.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite a labour by the sounds of it.
It is, yeah, it takes process. It is a process that we do to do this, right? And it becomes fixed and lifelike. So you get to a point where you don't have to put any more detail into it because the minute you imagine it, it's there. Mm-hmm. You've gone through that process of creating it. It's now effectively real in your head. Like I imagine Paul, and Paul is Paul. Yeah, I know what he looks like, but then I start imagining Paul around my house. I don't need to put any detail in because I know all the detail.
Right.
Well, the majority of the detail. There's some details I don't want to know, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've been to your house, so it wouldn't be too hard to imagine.
No, exactly. But I'm creating a brand spanking new person in my head for this. So effectively, it then becomes like a guest living in your house with you, even though it's still sort of like in the imaginary process, as it were.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, after she's gone through and she's got to that point, she then ends her seclusion and she goes and starts retouring the country. But this illusion of the monk carried on, and he started to appear in the group, right? And it weren't just seen by her, it was seen by others, like the other people in the group that were travelling. They'd often see him performing actions.
Oh, right.
Now, it ended up that she no longer needed to actively think about him to be seen and for him to be doing these actions. He became a life of his own.
Okay.
Right? And she could now feel him. His robe rubbing past her as he walked past her. Sometimes she felt his hand on her shoulder, that kind of thing, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
It then went a step further and then started to do things on its own, like things she hadn't put into the illusion. It started to act like it had its own will.
Mm-hmm.
And it became more than just visual. What she'd initially envisaged for the monk started to change. He started to look meaner and leaner. He started to become more troublesome and bold. So Alexander David Neal was actually losing her initial concept, an initial manifestation. It's actually manifested itself now. It's now becoming what it wants to be.
So it's become self-perpetuating, isn't it? Yeah.
It's changed from what she originally imagined.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one day a herdsman brought a present of butter to David Neal, saw the tulpa in her tent, and he thought that she had a lama visiting, like, a Dalai Lama visiting. And that was it for her. She was like, if this is becoming real to other people, this is a very successful experiment.
Well, yeah, I mean, wow.
But she's got to get rid of it now. She's done what she needed to do, proved that it's possible to do that to herself. Other people are seeing it. It's had a life of its own. She's now created something that's totally independent of her. Mm-hmm. But it's still hers. It's still her manifestation. So at this point she thought, right, I'm going to end the experiment. Now she has to dissolve the tulpa, so she has to end her belief in its existence. So it's one thing creating a belief system, something totally different to break down that belief system.
Yeah.
That took a further 6 months to fully accomplish for herself, to get rid of the tulpa that she created. How fascinating is that?
It is, actually. And using that sort of logic, the spirits that we encounter today, could they just not be the same sort of thing but manifested by children when they have imaginary friends? And by the time they've outgrown their imaginary friends, the imaginary friend has self-perpetuated, so it can carry on from where the child left off.
Possibly. Or you, an adult, will erode the belief system in the imaginary friend that the child's created for itself.
Yeah.
Through, don't be so stupid, it's not real. Those kind of things that you say to a child when they're talking about their imaginary friend, or they've manifested their fear into the bogeyman under the bed.
Yeah.
You erode the child's belief system by checking under the bed and going, no, there's nothing there. Or I'll get you a teddy bear that will protect you or something. You erode the belief system.
We should name this the drop dead Fred effect.
The drop dead Fred effect, yeah. Brilliant film. That was a really brilliant film. But do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
As a child, if a child's having an imaginary friend, normally it's only a short-term thing. Yeah, not saying that the child hasn't created a mini tulpa for itself. Yeah, but an adult will erode that belief system in the tulpa,
Yeah, but then
so it dissolves.
There are some adults out there that will play along.
You play along to a degree, but then at some point you start going, "You're a bit old for that now, darling."
Yeah, by then the spirit is self-perpetuated.
Or they go to school and then they don't need that tulpa anymore, so it naturally dissolves.
Yeah.
It's an erosion. She managed to dissolve her tulpa. Alexander David Neal dissolved hers by ending her built-up belief system in its existence. It's not a quick process, it's 6 months. So if you think of a child and an imaginary friend, even if they have created their own tulpa as an imaginary friend, life will dissolve that belief in its existence.
Yeah.
Because they'll go to school, the adult will, the way the adults talk about it, even if they're sort of going along with it when they're little, do you know what I mean? They get to an age and go, there's enough of that. Or they'll meet friends and they don't need the tulpa anymore. So the belief in that tulpa dissolves.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
So that's. But it's a concept. Again, it's a concept. Is it a spirit that's decided to start talking to your child, or is it a tulpa that they've created? Born out of, I don't know, desperation, loneliness, only child syndrome, whatever.
Yeah.
All a million different scenarios in that one. Oh, woo, this is getting good, isn't it, everybody?
I still don't know what today is.
Nobody knows what today is, darling. One day I'll get a phone call. So you're going back to work on Monday? I'll be like, what day's Monday? How many days away is that? How many sleeps have I got until that? And then I might click into a calendar again.
Yeah. Monday, what year?
Yeah, but I have to say this is very interesting to me, because when we talk about when I work with empaths, and we talk about learning to control the environmental impact on an empath, on an empath, can be quite negative. It can end up being quite a negative experience for the empath. Right, so we talk about a shielding, and one of the methods of shielding is creating, mentally visualizing a physical shield. Right, so in your head you visualize a shield. And you start off with whatever shape you want the shield to be. There's many different shapes of shields around throughout historical reference. For me, it was a round one with a knob bit in the middle. Yeah, that's how it started. And then every time I felt overwhelmed emotionally in a situation, I would whack up this round shield, and it was very basic. But I worked on this shield over time. Yeah? And all of a sudden, things started appearing on the shield that I hadn't put in it. It becomes a thought form in its own right, and it's a form of protection for me. So, if I'm dealing with somebody with grief, if I don't put my shield up, I'm a mess. I'm absorbing that grief. I'm like crying, even if I don't know the person. Yeah. So to help me deal with that, I put my shield up, and it will stop me being affected emotionally by the emotion that's being projected onto me from somebody else.
Yeah.
If I have a customer screaming abuse at me, I work in customer service in my day job.
You hit them with it?
I don't hit them with it, Paul. I whack my shield up, and 9 times out of 10, I don't always. It's not perfect, but now 9 times out of 10, I can brush it off. It doesn't affect me. I can go on and serve the next person and not even think about what had happened 2 minutes beforehand if I've put my shield up. And this is a technique we talk about. In effect, you're creating your own shield as a tulpa, although it's not a physical being. It's that kind of scenario, to an energetic form that is there to stop me being affected by an outside influence of emotion. Put on me a projection by somebody else. I'm not perfect at it. There are times I rise to the emotion. I'm not going to deny that. But generally, if I'm aware of what the situation is, I'll whack up my shield and I can deal with it. But these techniques we talk about in regard to, protection, harden your aura. You say that many people, when you talk doing protection, this is one of your criticisms actually, is that, you've worked with so many different psychics, there's so many different forms of protection.
Yeah.
But it's a way of getting people to visualise that they are protected, which does give them a layer of protection.
Yeah.
No matter what form you make them do it, if they believe that that's protecting them, it will work. It is an energetic difference.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how you achieve that. Alexander David Neal managed to create a tulpa through rituals she learnt from the Tibetan. Yeah?
Yeah.
But occultist William Walker Atkinson, in his book The Human Aura, described thought forms as a simple ethereal objects emanating from auras surrounding people. So he believed it was you was taking energy from other people to create the thought form.
Oh, right, I see.
Yeah, different,
Yeah.
Same thing, different way of doing it. When we talk about astral travel, we imagine, we visualise our body leaving our physical body and being joined by an etheric cord, a silver cord, that joins your etheric soul to your physical body. And you work on that until you start feeling that separation. And that's where astral travel comes in.
Yeah.
But it all starts with a visualization process.
Yeah, that's a bit I struggle with.
When you start meditating, you get walked through, and meditation is usually a journey. And you start off on the edge of a forest, or you take a forest path through, and you imagine the birds, imagine the trees. Maybe there's a light breeze, there's sunshine, dappled sunshine on your face. Do you know what I mean? You're led through a visualization process, and then we say you put the detail in, but then when you come across something that you didn't put in there, you didn't put in there. That's where the line is being crossed between you and the spiritual. See what I mean?
Yeah. No, I totally get it. Yeah.
So we need to consider this in the paranormal field. We've talked about this in terms of spiritual workings, we've talked about it in occult workings, we've talked about this in paranormal investigations. But if this is something that can be done...
Well, yeah. If it is, yeah. If you take what's been said as fact, yeah, this can be done.
Mm-hmm. And maybe, like we said earlier on, maybe, just maybe, we're unwittingly creating a short-term thought form every time we go into the location because we know the backstory of the location, like the Black Monk of Pontefract.
Yeah.
You go into 30 East Drive and you think, I'm going to see a Black Monk, and a paranormal activity happens and all.
Yeah.
The fact that you're well primed when you go into that location as well, with photographs of activity that have happened, strange photographs, the story of the Black Monk, it's set up in the 1960s kind of decor. You're primed on so many levels on that location that it's not going to take a great step for you to then start, I don't know, maybe it's manifested rather than an actual entity in its own right being the Black Monk of Pontefract. I don't know.
Yeah. It's definitely an interesting one.
It's a very interesting concept. The Theosophist, I don't know if I said that right, Theosophist, Annie Besant, in her book Thought Forms, divides them actually into three classes. Forms in the shape of the person who create them, forms that resemble objects or people and may become ensouled by nature spirits of the dead, or forms that represent inherent qualities from the astral or mental planes, such as emotions. Whatever way you want to look at it, they're thought forms.
Yeah, they are thought
Yeah.
forms. Yeah,
They take different forms, but again, she actually says they may be ensouled by nature spirits or by the dead. So she's not taking out the spirit factor.
No, well, that's
She's
fine.
just saying the thought form's there and they step into it. And they go, hey, this is good. I've got that energetic form already made for me. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Maybe, like your elemental that's at Kelford and Hatch.
Yeah.
We talk about the Fae appearing as you expect to see them. Maybe they're taking that thought form from your mind and appearing as you expect to see them because you've already got that energetic form there without even realising it.
That is quite a common. Well, you talk to anyone with a sort of knowledge of the Fae and elementals, and they will say they will appear how you expect to see them.
Yeah.
And it's not a huge leap to sort of say, well, are these tulpas, basic tulpas we're actually seeing, which we have created or collectively created for a short period of time.
It is fascinating. It's a fascinating concept. I mean, I've referenced one earlier on where an occultist actually created a thought form, put it into a location, and they're still getting activity at that location to this day. But that was actually a thought form that was created as an experiment. I can't give you any more details on that because obviously privacy. But there's another incident where an author tried this experiment and wanted to. And it started off as a plagiarising experiment. He wanted to see how many people read his book, did their own research behind it, and if they'd done their research, they would have realised that the ghost story that was put in a book was actually made up.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, that is quite a common practice with a lot of authors. They do it originally they used to do it to see if their work was being plagiarised, don't they?
Yeah. So that we know that's happened before now, and it does take it out into you do your own research, everybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't just take everything you read in books or, on the internet or what somebody else, because it could just be a repeated story and there's been no research behind it. So, and that is getting paranormal activity reported, even though it was a fake story that was put in a book. People are recreating that. And that's because people read the book, believe it's there, and then all of a sudden they're starting to witness stuff. Is that a tulpa that's been created by the author? Unwittingly. It was done completely different intention, but maybe that's what's happened. Who knows?
No one knows.
Interesting concept though, boys.
It is.
Yeah, it's sort of like you start off with, thought forms and sort of like where it leads you, and the whole sort of, you think, well, this can tick a lot of boxes.
It doesn't fit every remit though.
No, but at the same time, it's sort of, it's an attractive proposal.
It is one of the most attractive, I have to say, that I've come across. I say it doesn't fit every scenario, but it does fit a lot.
Yeah.
Like Richard says, I mean, there is a term called the genius loci, which is basically guardian spirit. And again, when I talked about the sacred wells and the devotion that somebody, a culture has put on a water source or something like that, they created basically a genius loci, a guardian spirit of a specific area. And this is, again, a thought form that got created. And who knows, maybe a nature spirit took over that thought form and is forever protecting and guardian that particular water source or that area of wood or, that kind of thing. Fascinating area when you start looking into it. Maybe this is the black shark. It has stories. Maybe this is where black shark comes from, a thought form that was created because sometimes they're protective, sometimes they're not. Depending on where you are, when you look at the folklore behind that one, You know, there's a lot to be said for this. I tell you.
Yeah, I can actually see that. You
Yeah.
know, sort of back in the distant past, Celtic times, whatever. If they knew about this sort of practice of creating a tulpa, you know, and a dog possibly would be a good one to actually create if you want particular areas sort of kept off guard, you know, sort of like to be kept. You want strangers to be kept away from to get a tulpa to protect it.
Mm. Mm. One thing I think, if you do go out and create one deliberately, I think one thing is really worth noting is you can reabsorb it. You can get rid of it as much. It takes time, but you have to break down the belief system in the tulpa to get rid of it. And yeah, interesting.
It is a plot thickens.
I love this topic. I've talked about this topic quite a lot. I even looked into I tried to look into the scientific at one point for something different. We were looking at ghosts that are protective, and I looked into energy, and you know, like there's potential energy and there's kinetic energy, and then I went, we go down loads of different roads with that. But again, it leads you, if you want, it can lead you down that rabbit hole on this one. And I'd say in the first half of the show, I led you down questioned you on emotional and an energy, and took you a while to get to, you know, to get to the point of thought forms. But they're all things you should consider when you're thinking of thought forms. Fascinating topic.
Yeah.
Anyway, what news do we have to report, apart from the fact that I haven't written my blog yet?
That's about it, isn't it?
What was the last blog? Away with the Fairies, I think, wasn't
Away
it?
with the Fairies. Yeah,
Richard Wright. That's up on our website.
That's currently up on paranormalconcept.com. So go over by all means and cast your eyes over that one.
And then go to the publications and buy our books.
Yeah, we've got 2 books out. The most important one is the one we've recently released, Paranormal Concept Extra, where you can read all of our blogs in one place. That's absolutely a fantastic book, even if I do say so myself.
Yeah, it is. It's a really good book.
Very thought-provoking book, not your typical ghost hunter how-to, is what I will say on that one. Goes on lots of different areas and ideas and concepts that we cover on the Paranormal Concept Show. So on that note, guys, time to say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. What are you on about, woman?
Oh, goodbye.